This really amazes me. Do you remember how outraged so many Australians claimed to be when tennis star Novak Djokovic flew out here for the last Australian Open, saying he had actually had an exemption from the rules, saying that all players had to be vaccinated against COVID. He wasn't sick, he wasn't infected, he was just not vaccinated. He even offered to be regularly tested so it posed no risk. No good. Denounced as a bum, thrown out of the country. Also banned from the US Open, by the way. But Australians seem to think it's meanwhile perfectly okay for Australian all-rounder Tahlia McGrath to play in the Commonwealth Games gold medal match against India despite testing positive for COVID. I mean, she didn't line up with her teammates. I mean, that's right, you know, during the national anthems, didn't want to get them infected, sat by herself in the stands wearing a face mask apart from the other Australian players until she came out to bat at number 4 and without a mask on. And then she was back in the hugger-mugger with the teammates to collect her gold medal. Joining me is Brendan O'Neill, political editor of the online magazine Spike. Brendan O'Neill, solve this for me. You got it on one side, Djokovic, healthy person, not vaccinated, banned, a villain. On the other, you've got a sick person, vaccinated, she plays, a hero. Please explain to me the difference.
I mean, this is one of the worst cases of double standards I can remember. And as you outlined there, we had a healthy man who was forbidden from playing in Australia and America, and who was thoroughly demonized for breaking the rules or risking breaking the rules. And then you have this unhealthy woman, in the sense that she has COVID-19, who is allowed to play and is being cheered on. It really is quite extraordinary. I think it's a reminder of how badly Djokovic was treated when he came to Australia. It really was a shameful moment for Australia, I think. And the problem was that it was never just about his health status. We know he was healthy. We know he didn't have COVID. It was also about what was in his mind. It was about what he was thinking. It was about the fact that he criticized aspects of the vaccine program and suggested publicly that people like him might not need to get vaccinated. And it was for those thought crimes and speech crimes that he was really demonized. So there was an incredibly authoritarian element to this assault on Djokovic. And I think we need a bit of a reckoning with what happened back then.
Honestly, you're so right about how disgracefully he was treated. For me, it was one of these things that Australia seems to specialise in, which is a group hate. You know, pick someone we can all, you know, scapegoat we can all hate. It was a real hate-a-thon. It had nothing to do, as you say, it was about what he thought, not the real risk he posed, which was almost zero. But on that point, but we see so much of this. It's what you think, not what you do. Brendan, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, perfect example, about the most woke political leader in the world, lecturing Canadians just a couple of weeks ago, by the way, you know, got to wear face masks, and the coal and gas industries, like everyone else, they've got to slash global warming emissions. Here he is.
A little over 40% emission cuts compared to where we are today.
Yeah, this same Justin Trudeau then pops his family in a private jet to go fly to Costa Rica last week, and without wearing, apparently, any face masks. What does this tell you, Brendan?
The amount of hypocrisy in the environmental movement is extraordinary. Very often what we have here are wealthy, well-connected people telling the masses to learn to live with less, to stop being so greedy, to stop going on holidays, to stop having so many children, while they themselves are flying around in private jets, going to all sorts of fancy places, expending far more carbon than the rest of us do. You know, you've got Justin Trudeau, the king of virtue signaling, who commits these kinds of eco-crimes with impunity by the looks of it. John Kerry, who lectures us about climate change all the time and then takes a private jet to go to Barack Obama's 60th birthday party. Harry and Meghan, you know, there's a new book about them which says that they took private jets like the rest of us take Ubers, and then they use the pages of Vogue magazines to lecture us all about climate change. So real high levels of hypocrisy, and sums up that environmentalism is increasingly about the rich telling the rest of us what to do.
Well, you mentioned Prince Harry. He gave a speech to the UN, was a couple of weeks ago, likening Russia's invasion of Ukraine to the US Supreme Court decision, saying there was actually no rule in the US, no line in the US Constitution that actually banned abortion. He said both were assaults on democracy. And the judge who wrote that abortion opinion, Samuel Alito, has now told a meeting in Rome how devastated he was by the prince. Here he is.
What really wounded me was when the Duke of Sussex addressed the United Nations and seemed to compare the decision, whose name may not be spoken, with the Russian attack on Ukraine.
Brendan O'Neill, the poor man seems shattered.
I love that. That is exactly the approach that Americans should take to pompous British royals who try to tell them how to run their affairs. You know, they kicked Britain and the royal family out of their country hundreds of years ago. They don't want the Duke of Sussex and his American wife coming back now, wagging their fingers at them. And, you know, let's remember that last year, Prince Harry referred to the First Amendment as bonkers. He said that the First Amendment of the American Bill of Rights, which guarantees freedom of speech, he said it was disgraceful and it made no sense to him. And now he's posing as a defender of constitutional rights, including in relation to Roe v. Wade. Again, another hypocrite, another finger wagger. The sooner Americans tell him to shut up, the better.
Brendan O'Neill, we live in a wild world, but there's one side benefit. He gives us plenty to talk about. Thank you so much for your time.